Apple posting a record close as it hosts its annual Worldwide Developers Conference, and this year it was all virtual. Let's get to Josh Lipton with all the big headlines. Hey, Josh.
So, Melissa, Apple announcing a range of upgrades and new features across its multiple operating systems today. So, iOS 14 was announced with improvements to Messages, Siri, and Maps. Apple also introduced a new app, a digital car key that can unlock and start a car. And Watch OS 7 was introduced too, which will include sleep tracking. But the scene stealer at this software show was actually a hardware announcement, specifically when it comes to the Mac. Apple now says it will move away from Intel processors, which it has used for years, to its own chips. Apple's chip guru, Johnny Shruji, making a rare appearance touting the technology.
Building upon our years of experience designing the world's most energy-efficient chips, our plan is to give the Mac a much higher level of performance, while at the same time consuming less power.
Apple says this transition will take about 2 years. Some analysts that cover Apple like the news, saying this should improve performance and reduce cost. One question asked, of course, is what does all this mean for Intel investors? I checked in with Bernstein's Stacy Rasgon. He doesn't see this as a critical financial hit yet, but there are broader strategic concerns, he says, with Apple now saying it can deliver a premium PC without Intel chips. That could be problematic, he argues, because it can offer more opportunity for Intel rivals like ARM. Melissa, back to you.
Josh, this, of course, is the developers conference, and lately Apple has come under fire for how much it charges developers. Was there any mention of that? And I guess it's maybe the silver lining of it being virtual is that there aren't any sort of vocal people who might show up at the conference, basically protesting the 15 to 30% that Apple charges.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's virtual. One big benefit of this conference in more normal times is that developers can come and they mix and mingle with Apple engineers and also each other, of course. So it'll be interesting to see whether they find this conference as fruitful when it's moved online. You're certainly right to say the conference was a little bit different this year because there was this backdrop of increasing tension and scrutiny when it comes to the App Store. We know European regulators have opened up. There was a high-profile fight with an email app called Hey. The guy behind that app, David Hansen, is a well-known name in tech, but it seems this morning at least what David Hansen's team said is that they've sort of buried the hatchet with Apple, at least for now. Maybe that was an attempt for Apple to sort of lower the temperature a bit here heading into this conference and really repivot so that the focus of the conference not on these tensions but on the fact that the App Store is this big, powerful platform and can make developers a lot of money, Melissa.
I wonder how they buried the hatchet. That was my first question.
Well, what they said was the issue was that Apple's Phil Schiller talked to reporters and said one real issue with that app was that if you downloaded the app, it didn't work. This was the argument he made, and that we're not going to have that on the store. And so David Hansen and his team got back to work, came up with a new version of the app, which was a free temporary version. We'll see if that, and Apple did approve that according to Hansen. So we'll see where it goes from here, Melissa.
Okay. Josh, thanks. Josh Lipton with the latest from WWDC. Guy Adami, how do you trade this monster? Record highs here.
Well, a couple things. I think it's amazing that Josh Lipton is able to have such an in-depth interviews with Apple and then still star in Magnum PI on Friday nights. It's just amazing he's able to do both. Kudos to him, number one. Number two, it speaks volumes as to Intel stock performance since Apple sort of said, see you later. I think it's actually a great miss. It's the best thing about being an Apple supplier is being able to say you're an Apple supplier. Not a lot of companies seem to be doing all that well on the margin front. So I think actually this augurs well for Intel. And if you go back a week or so, I think Morgan Stanley downgraded Intel but raised their price target to 65. I think it gets there. And in terms of Apple, again, I'm not pretending I'm some crazy Apple bull. I'm not. But I'll point out that over the last 2 years, you've seen a stock go from what at the time was an all-time high of 225 down to 150 in a straight line and recover, and recently an all-time high of 325 thereabouts and trade down to 240 and recover. Those are monstrous moves in a huge company, and the stock's giving you an opportunity. I think you're going to get another opportunity at the previous all-time high, which is 325.
Steve?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things going for Apple. People are chasing fortified balance sheets in this marketplace, so they're buying Apple. Then when you get a rotation to value, they buy Apple. So you have a number, they win on both hands. Now you have services closing in on $50 billion in revenue. I have to assume that shelter in place is only going to foster that. It's going to be a tailwind. Then you have 5G on top of it. So I don't deny what Guy says. I think you get an opportunity. I'm long. I've been long. I'm staying long. I might add on that other opportunity.